All right, this is the Brian Hornback Experience. This is episode 161, and I'm not in the Old Forge Distilling Podcast studio. This is the first one I've done remotely, and the first one I've done with actual people in here. So we'll see how this goes, right? Anyway, I've got the guys that are the law firm of Burks and Ogle. You see Burks and Ogle on the brianhornback.com website, and now we're going to do a podcast. And we're going to talk about what these guys' specialties are, the number of years that they have, and all those things. And this may be the first of many. This may be the only one. We don't know yet, but we're going to get started. So we got three guys who are Burks and Ogle. I guess we go with the guy that's name's on the firm first. That would be Mr. Burks in the middle, Charles Burks.
Yep.
We have Nate Ogle, the GQ guy, right? Anyway, and then we have Jacob. So Jacob's relatively new to the firm, right?
Yep. I'm the new addition.
So we're gonna talk about kind of the specialty. Mr. Burks, all these guys have more than 50 years of experience, and you can read all about them on Burks and Ogle. But we're just gonna kind of talk about it. So, Mr. Burks, just kind of introduce yourself and kind of what your specialty is, and then we'll go to Nate, and then we'll go to Jacob.
Well, Brian, thank you for having us on your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Chuck Burks.
Chuck.
I've been practicing for over 40 years here in Knoxville with really a specialty in criminal law, do other types of law, do some administrative law, and some civil law. Don't do any domestic anymore, or any estate planning or anything like that. But generally it's trial work. We do a lot of, I guess if anything, we would specialize in trial work, both jury, civil and criminal trials.
So trials can go for multiple days, right?
They can.
So,
They can. The longest one I've had was 4 months.
Really?
Yeah, I tried a federal case back in 2020, started in October of 2020, a appeal mill case in federal court.
Yeah.
Jury came back in February of 21. So,
Wow.
Trials can last for a long time.
So were you actually in the courtroom Monday through Friday for 4 months, or?
Well, I mean, we had a break a couple of days for Thanksgiving and a couple of days for Christmas. But other than that, we were in the courtroom Monday through Friday, unless the judge had something he had to take up one day. But majority of that time we were in trial.
Wow. Yeah, I think I remember those pill mills that got busted. But that's the thing, is people wind up finding themselves in, for whatever reason. Sometimes they find themselves maybe had one too many at the local watering hole, and they wind up getting pulled over. People are in business, and things can get out of hand. And then at some points you got people knocking on your door. But at the end of the day, it's about obviously the prosecution and the defense, right?
And of course, our position was that these were paying clinics,
Right.
That my client worked for, and of course the government referred to them as a pill mill, which was the contention that we had to try, whether
Right.
it was or wasn't.
Wow. Yeah, and the federal court can obviously take some time. I mean, I know we've seen other cases like the Pilot Flying J trial. I mean, it had two different iterations. So federal cases are different than state cases, right? So Nate, I know when you and I first met, you were a prosecutor.
That's right.
So if somebody finds themselves on the wrong side of a charge from a grand jury or from an arrest, you kind of know both sides of it. You know what it's like to try to send the guy to jail, and now you know how to try to get the guy out of jail, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I spent 8 years at the Knox County District Attorney's Office, prosecuted a wide variety of cases. Actually started out interning there when I was in law school, worked in the drug unit, and then sort of worked my way once I became an attorney there in 2014. I had worked by myself and with another lawyer for about 1.5 years before I went to the district attorney's office. So I kind of dabbled in private practice a little bit before then. And then once Sharm Allen was elected, I came in and went to work there and loved my time there. Worked first as just a general trial prosecutor at the district attorney's office in criminal court division 2, and that was an awesome opportunity. I got to just primarily work there in Judge Bob McGee's court, and really got to know him, and tried a lot of cases in there, everything from your misdemeanor assaults all the way to low-level homicide cases. And then I went into the child abuse unit and did child abuse cases for several years, and then went into major crimes. So I've done a little bit of everything at the DA's office. And so when I made the decision to come out and leave the DA's office and come to work with Mr. Burks, one of the things that I really thought a lot about was I wanted to come to work with someone who had a lot of experience in criminal defense and also in general civil litigation, someone that I could learn from and really grow with as an attorney. And I had worked a case with Mr. Burks before when I was a prosecutor. That's how I gotten to know him. And
so Mr. Burks beat you in that case?
Well,
we don't have to talk. We don't have to talk about that.
But we got to know each other during the course of that litigation. I think he probably was still dealing with that case by the time I was no longer in the child abuse unit. But we got to know each other during that, and of course, when I went to work with him, and that would have been in October of 2022. I got to see exactly what it was that he'd been doing for so long, which was his criminal defense work, and also the work that he was doing representing officers in our community, which was something that was sort of near and dear to me, because obviously I had relationships with officers that I'd worked with as a prosecutor, and I have family members that are in law enforcement, so very close to the law enforcement community, and we got to work. Right as soon as I came into the office with Mr. Burks, we went to work on a really important case with an officer and trying to deal with an officer who had been dismissed from his job and get that overturned. And thankfully we were successful in that action. So that was a great experience for me. And from there, we've just continued to grow and succeed in our practice.
So do y'all still do some work on representing the officers?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing. Officers are, they're trained, right? They go through the training, but then they're out there, and it's easy to second guess an officer. Obviously there's bad apples in every profession, but they get sued more than anybody. It seems like, Well,
they're on the cutting edge of
Right.
society,
right?
and quite frankly, a police officer has less rights than a citizen, because if a citizen is accused of doing something, that citizen doesn't have to say anything to anybody other
Right.
than their lawyer. The police officer is ordered to give a statement by his superiors, so he either resigns and doesn't give a statement, loses his job, or he gives a statement without the benefits that we would normally have as citizens under the Miranda rights and other rights. So,
And he may or may not incriminate himself, right?
well, that's
on that statement.
That's so they really are in a tough spot. And of course, I've noticed that over the last 15 to 10 years, the society has taken a different position about law enforcement, unfortunately, and I think it's really hurt in general law enforcement by just the attitude of society, because now that people see them in a different light when really they are there to help the society.
I guess everybody kind of goes back and says it's the George Floyd that kind of the George Floyd case, that happened. That so I don't know if that was the case or not, but obviously that brought a lot of 24/7. I know I've been around long enough to remember when we didn't have 24/7 news. And everybody, well, right here, I'm doing a podcast with an iPhone. Everybody is a photojournalist now when they're out on the street. So you see police, and who knows where the cameras are and what the camera angles are. But
well, I think the most important thing, Brian, and a big part, we don't just do criminal defense.
Right.
We do family law, domestic representation. We do personal injury work. And really for us, whether it's a criminal defense case or personal injury, family law, or they're representing an officer, whatever it is, you know, we meet that person wherever they are, whatever issue they're dealing with, and we give them our full attention and work as hard as we can to make sure that they get the best result possible.
Right.
And that's what our focus is. And you know, in dealing with officers, a lot of times they are right there, like Mr. Burks said, on the cutting edge of some terrible event, and they're used to dealing with awful things. And then they're faced with suddenly some sort of administrative action or potential criminal charges, like a lot of our other clients, and they're scared.
Yeah.
They're worried about what's going to happen to them, what's going to happen to their livelihood. Are they going to lose their job? Are they going to lose their family? And that's where we meet them.
Right.
And we do everything we can to get them to a point where they understand that this is going to be a process, and we're going to walk with them hand in hand and get them through it.
Right. So criminal defense, child custody, family matters, personal injury. Is there really anything that you don't or that you stay away from?
Yes, there are things that we stay away from. We really don't do much real estate litigation or anything like that. You know, that there's, you know, it's just not something we really do.
Right.
There's other things I know that Chuck has done in the past that, you know, we don't really do much of anymore. We don't really do a whole lot of workers' comp anymore.
Right.
We do some of it, but it's just not a big thing that we do anymore. And I know at one point when in Chuck's previous practice, they did some medical malpractice, but that's not really something that we're engaged in anymore.
Well, Jacob, how long have you been here?
So I guess I'm starting my second month here with the firm.
All right, cool.
And yeah, really enjoyed my time here so far. I came from a little bit of a different background from Nate, although we go way back. We actually met on a trial team in undergraduate.
Oh, wow.
And so we would travel around the country, you know, for UT mock trial and compete against other universities and normally win. And I think even from back then, we sort of had complementary styles that worked very well with each other. And I know I kind of had in the back of my mind that if there was ever an opportunity for us to get together, I thought we could do some excellent work together. And this is sort of the fruition of that. I mean, we started this sort of in 2006, and he took the route with the DA's office. I have been in criminal defense and civil litigation the entire time. I started off working with James A.H. Bell.
Oh, wow.
Familiar with A.H.
Oh, yeah.
But certainly a legendary defense attorney in this town, and learned a ton from him. And mostly kind of like, as Nate was talking earlier, like about meeting people where they are. That's kind of, I think, the crux of what Jim taught me is like, you go to law school, you learn the law, and then you go into private practice and you learn how to try to solve problems for people.
Right.
And how to, you know, I tell people all the time, like young attorneys that I talk to or mentor, like you need to work on problems, don't work around them. Like really get invested in what it is that the person is coming to you to get help with. Like treat that as you would want somebody to treat you if you were in that scenario, and just dive in and be all in and trying to help them with whatever the problem is. And I think that's the approach I've taken throughout my entire practice. I went from Jim's office to the public defender's office, and I worked there for 3 years. And John Halstead, David Skidmore, Christy Murray, Eric Lutton, wonderful, some of the best criminal defense attorneys in this town, and took little tips and tricks and things from all of them. But at the end of the day, it's about meeting people where they are and then using the legal system to try to help them out with whatever the problem is that they're dealing with. Because normally they're not talking to an attorney because they've got something happy going on in their life. Normally it is one of the most stressful, desperate times that somebody is going to encounter. And so you just can't ever forget that when you're representing people, because it's, you know, it is an extremely emotionally difficult thing, and we try to do what we can to provide what comfort we can, and also to solve whatever legal problem we can.
And I think before we started this, I think you were having a conversation with someone who's bilingual. So y'all have that aspect of with the firm too, right?
And that's one of the things I love about being here is that, like, we've got, you know, we don't have somebody that's bilingual on staff. But I had a relationship with a former extern at the PD's office. I had somebody that called in, you know, couldn't fully understand exactly what the problem was, but I knew she was desperate. I knew her husband was in jail down here, and I knew he needed help. So picked up the phone. I called my former clerk. She was here within an hour. We're on the phone with her, and I'm going to be in court on him tomorrow.
Right.
So having, you know, I love my time at the PD's office, but I just wouldn't have had the ability to do something like that, to really jump in on somebody's problem. And you know, I don't know ultimately where it's going to end up, but I do know that I'm going to be there for him tomorrow, and he's not going to be there standing, you know, in front of the judge with nobody there to represent him. So having the ability to sort of, and them giving me the freedom to do that is, I think, why you know, we're a pretty special law firm.
Right. And I think that's really what's kind of special about you all being on my site and me being able to advocate for people who find themselves in situations they need to have an advocate.
Sure.
And for 20 years I've been a blogger. I've been a podcaster now for a few years. But I mean, my whole thing is to try to get information out. And I think that's really what people need to know. They need to know that when they get pulled over, if they find themselves getting arrested or they find themselves with something, they need to have somebody to talk to. And it's intimidating if you call one of these law firms that have 19, 20 lawyers. I mean, you don't know who to talk to.
Sure.
But the one thing I like about the fact that Nate and I met several years ago is that he and I had a personal relationship. Now I've gotten to know you all, and that's the other thing about my website and about what I do as my hobby is that I don't put anybody and everybody, and I try to be exclusive to one entity. And so I firmly believe that through my relationship with Nate and now talking to Mr. Burks and talking with Jacob, I believe you all are the guys that when people find themselves in need, whether it's a personal injury or child custody or child abuse or criminal defense, then I mean, they need to go to your website, fill out the contact form, give y'all a call, and see if you can help. And I know that from what I've met of the three of y'all, that if you can't help them, you'll send them where they need to go, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think, kind of speaking and adding on to what Jacob talked about earlier, this is sort of a unique place, our practice, because we are a small shop. We have three attorneys here. We're all close. We have, a close staff. We only have a couple of staff members. We have a bookkeeper. We have, we have paralegal. We have a law clerk. We have a administrative assistant who's up front running the show, and we all know what's going on, and that's a great thing to have. What you mentioned earlier, sometimes when you have a big, huge firm, people fall through the cracks. Their cases maybe aren't as important. Some of them are more important, and you tend to have situations where people feel like they're being neglected. But in our firm, in our practice, we have the unique opportunity to spend more time with our clients, to spend more time talking to them, to have them here into our office, to spend time with us, for us to help them solve their problems. And that's what we take pride in.
Well, what I like is when I walked in the door and the lady was at her desk, I mean, when I said Brian Hornback, she knew what I was here for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good indication that when somebody hires one of you, you all of you kind of know what, you may not know every detail of the case, but you at least know what they're there for.
And we talk about these cases together. That's the other thing. And I think it's important to understand that when people come in and speak with Nate or Jacob and myself, I tell them that they're hiring Burks and Ogle. And if it takes one, or if it takes two, or if it takes three, I know Jacob and I met with a lady the other day, and we both sort of spoke with her and tried to figure out what was the best way to represent her. And we tell them that. I mean, they pay one fee, but they're really hiring the firm,
right.
And if whatever it takes. And we talk about our cases a lot together. We brainstorm together, and it's just the right size to be able to do that. I've been in larger firms.
You've been with some notorious people that we talked about earlier, but we won't talk about that on this podcast.
But it's a good size, and this is kind of when Nate and I decided to get together on this. Our goal was to pick up one more attorney. We felt like that was a good balance, and fortunately we were able to get Jacob to come over, and so we bring really kind of a blend. We bring Nate's prosecutorial background, Jacob's work with the public defenders, where he's worked a lot of cases and had to deal in little short times in dealing with people, and then I've been doing it since I guess Moses was around.
Well, now we're not going that far.
But anyway, what I'm saying is,
right.
It's a good blend, and I think we really feed off of each other. And I learn a lot from both of these individuals, And so I think it's a good blend, and that I think we're very excited about what we have and what's in front of us. And I just wanted to say, a lot of people will say, well, how can you do criminal defense work?
Mm.
And the reality is, and I think this is true to Jacob and Nate and myself more than anything, we really stand between a citizen accused of a crime and society that's trying to punish them or put them away or take their life. And they need somebody that believes in the system, which we do, and we will fight to the last instant to make sure that person gets the best representation in the world, because that's the only time justice can really prevail, if you fight for them. So we really are standing there against the government, against the law enforcement, against everything, and it's just that client on the other side with us.
Right.
So that gives us a lot of desire to help citizens that are accused of crimes that need good representation, and so that's the way we look at it.
And those citizens accused, I mean, they come from all walks of life,
Right.
I mean, it's your friend, it's your neighbor, it's an officer that's wrongfully accused of a crime or some misdeed. They're all over the place. That the people that we meet with and the people that we work for. So that's something that we always try to keep in mind. You know, whoever they are, whatever their background is, we're focused on meeting their needs and representing them to the best degree we possibly can.
Right. Well, I'm sure we may do another podcast, but I think everybody has a good idea of what Burks and Ogle offers, and we'll continue shining the light on Burks and Ogle as long as we can. And I know that people need to, if they need somebody, then they can call these three guys, and they'll be well represented. So
we appreciate that.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.